Hi, good morning. I'm Don Daniels. I'm the interim president of the Rockford Area Economic Development Council. We are sponsoring today's webinar titled Starting Government Contracting. Thank you to the Procurement Technical Assistance Center for partnering with us to offer this webinar. The Rockford Area Economic Development Council offers courses and webinars like this to help regional companies expand by diversifying their customer base while also increasing their capabilities. You can learn more about the Rockford Area Economic Development Council at rockfordil.com. Thank you so much. I am now going to turn it over to Rita, and thank you so much for attending. We look forward to interacting with you in the future.
Great, thank you, Don. If everybody will give us some patience, I'm going to make sure this all works. All right, so hopefully you are seeing my screen right now.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Uh-oh. Okay, you're not. Okay, are you seeing my screen? Nope. Says it's paused. All right, so we need to do a quick change here, and I apologize. It's as we go, we learn. So I need to reclaim as host. Okay, that's great. So now I should be able to share the screen without issues. And if you can, please confirm you are seeing my screen with a quick notation in the Q&A, I'd appreciate it. I do see a hand raised. The webinar will only allow chat or Q&A. Yes, perfect. So the screen is being seen. Okay, thank you. So sorry for the little hiccup here. I am Rita Hockey. I am the director, as Don said, of the Illinois Procurement Technical Assistance Center here at College of DuPage. Right now I have my video on just so you could see who's speaking to you today. But for the sake of avoiding technical issues, I am going to stop my video and then just be showing you the presentation until the end. I will come back on. We do have another, okay, great. So it's just confirmation. As you can see, as we go through, please feel free to put your questions in the chat or the Q&A. I will find a good place to stop to address it. So today it's starting government contracting. And before we get into the full topical, I'm so sorry, this is not, I've got 3 screens here and I'm not sure what's showing right now. So I'm gonna stop quickly and restart. Unfortunately, when you work from too many screens, it becomes a problem. Hopefully you are seeing something that says full is to help you understand what is available to you that is funded by state of Illinois. So the PTAC, we focus on government contracting and certifications. We are federally funded by Defense Logistics Agency, or DLA. In Illinois, we are funded by Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, DCEO. There are approximately 11 offices in Illinois, and there are about 90 different locations in the country. The reason I am presenting to you from the western suburbs is because I am the closest PTAC to your location. You also have the SBDC, the Small Business Development. They will assist with all things operational for your business. Financial funding, financial analysis, management assessment, marketing plans, social media, business plans. You do have an SBDC in Rockford, so there is one geographically close to you. There are about 55 of those in state of Illinois and well over 1,000 in the country. Those are federally funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration and then DCEO, Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity in Illinois. Finally, you do have an International Trade Center, or ITC, available as a resource. That is all things global or international for a business. Again, similar to the PTAC, not as many locations, about 12 of those in state of Illinois. And I believe the one we have is closest for you to receive services. They are funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration and DCEO as well. Every location has funding from their host. So my host is College of DuPage. And so between those three parties of funding, we are able to offer our services free of charge. It is intended to be one-on-one and long-term to assist the business. If you need a referral to any other services, you will get my email at the end. So please feel free to send me an email and I'll be happy to give you that connection. So what does the PTAC do? So this is a listing of our client services, and we are going to review these services today. So this is really the short bulleted overview. You become a client by registering as a client in our e-center. So today you registered to attend this session, and that was to be a contact. If you want to become a full client, you would log back in to that same location, that e-center, and you would move your individual registration over to a business registration, and that is where you become a client. As I said, our services are completely free of charge, intended to be ongoing and long-term, and it's all because of our grant funding. It is free. The only thing we ever ask for from our clients is that if you win contracts, you report them. So once you become a client of any center, there is a survey that is done regularly. In my case, I do it monthly with my clients, and the survey says, did you receive any contracts, and were we part of it? If we were, we're just asking you to report those to us, and that's how I keep us in place per performance measures. So let's get started with a service that I think is really very useful to businesses. It's finding government opportunities. So you could spend 24/7 looking for governmental opportunities when you consider the local, state, and federal size of government. We have a system, again, free to you, that will search 2,000 governmental websites every day on your behalf. That search will be all local government, all state government, and all federal government. If you have a business that is very much geographic, so you can only do work in Illinois, I do have the ability to restrict per state. I don't normally encourage you to do that. I would rather you see the information of what is being bought, how is it being bought by the various levels of government, but I can do that restriction. How we customize this bid match is you give us keywords. And keywords are, it's a simple question I ask. If someone is describing what you're trying to sell, what are the words they would use to describe? That's what you supply to me and I put into the system. The words could be used by contracting staff. So that's what you're trying to match on. Contracting staff or buyers have the authority to go make a purchase. They are the ones that are going to release it. They don't necessarily have the expertise at what they're buying. So you're trying to give keywords that potentially could be used by a buyer, even though they do not have the technical experience. The keywords we put in initially can be changed. It's very common that we may have to do a little tweaking as we go on. And you would just send me an email. And I'm going to show you how you will know what keyword is producing each opportunity. So if you do get an opportunity that you would say, this doesn't apply, now we know which keyword needs to be adjusted. That is sent to the email that is associated to the record. We do have my assistant's email there, but you can also send me the listing of keywords as well. And then I will help you understand how additional advising or counseling is available to you ongoing. What's most important for you on that first day you get the email is that first link, My Bid Match. That link gives you access to 30 days of your searches. So it is your customized URL in our system. And what you would see would look like this. It's broken down by the day. And then the articles in the middle are saying, here are the number of notices you received for today based on the search we're doing. And then the system will tell you if you read that day or not. So it's a good way for you to monitor and track, have I actually looked at the information I received 2 days ago? Because it can start to feel overwhelming. So we try and make it very methodical. Each day will identify, when clicking on the day, will identify what those specific opportunities are. Going back to the email, you will see the next line gives the date. So you may be monitoring every day. So you really don't need to go through that 30-day vantage point. You can go right to that date. And so you can click on that date and it will bypass the 30-day and it'll go right to the date. So this is what it would look like when you go and click into a date. On the left side, under source, you're going to understand what is a state or local and what is a federal. The way you will understand that is procure is used by federal government, bid is used by state or local. The state or local is always at the bottom of federal. In addition to the opportunities, we are sending you the award notifications. So government has a responsibility to notify the marketplace, basically, where are the dollars being spent? And just as they have to notify what they are doing, they do have to notify what decision did they make as well. And so you would receive the award information, and that could be some good competitive intelligence. As you are into this, you may have seen the procurement opportunity come through, but maybe you decide not to respond to it. At some point, you would then see the award information and you will see who won and how much. The second column on the left will tell you the agency, so you'll clearly know who is actually the one making the purchase. The middle column is where you're going to get your connection to the source of origination. Our goal is to get you right to where the information is being released from. If any of you have gone to the SAM system to search federal opportunities, you go to a main page and then you have to do searching from there to find opportunities. Our system bypasses that main page and takes you right to the opportunity. So you get the details you need. And then finally on the right side are those keywords. And so this is how you would know if we need to make adjustment to keywords, that is how we're going to understand and know what words are triggering information that maybe is not a good fit for you. And then we can discuss how we can make changes to it. The bottom of this page is showing you what could happen when you click on that middle column. There may be a placement page in between the source and this clicking from the listing. So what that means is you just go to the bottom link where the star is. If you have this intermediary page, click there and it will take you right to the source of origination. This is how we can offer ongoing assistance to clients. So we are sending you notices, opportunities every day. it really is like a different language when you really start to look at these. And so we work with our clients, number one, to understand what is being asked for, what is being said, and we start to teach you and educate you on these systems. We can also be in place. Maybe you find an opportunity and you say, this is a great fit for me, but I'm not really clear what it's asking for. That's where you can pull in an advisor, myself or Eileen, and you can even tell us, can you look at my bid match on, today, December 16th, and you can see each of those lines are numbered. So you could say December 16th, number 3. Well, if you send us that email, we know you want us to do a contractual analysis for you. And what we will do is we will go into the opportunity just like you would. We will review it and we will offer you line by line insight. We do not touch the technical side because I work in all industries. You are the technical expert. I'm just going to be your contractual proposal support. I may even be able to offer you a proposal outline to give you suggestions on here's how you could format your response. We always want to make sure you are complete and thorough if you are responding to an opportunity. So now we move directly forward into what does it mean to be a federal contractor? And there are some very specific steps so you can become a registered contractor in the eyes of the federal government. System. It is done by Dun & Bradstreet and it is free of charge. So Dun & Bradstreet has their D&B number. And it's very possible that you have a D&B for business purposes. You do not need it for my purposes for federal contract. B costs money. It's business credit reporting. It's potentially going to be asked for by other businesses to look at your business, but federal government does not need that information. So that's why it gives you the ability to get this DUNS number for free. You do not have to pay for that D&B. If you do have a D&B, they're automatically going to use that as your DUNS number. Dun & Bradstreet has lost the contract. And what that means is currently you will get the DUNS number. Come next April, the DUNS number will actually go away. When you are registering in the next system, they're automatically assigning you another number that starting next April will be primarily used. If you're a client of the center, we will notify you as we get closer to that so you know what to expect when it happens. We give you the link to get that DUNS number. And again, it's free of charge. You go on the site, you give the information requested. It's going to be minimal information that you need to give them. But I do want to encourage you to pay attention to the details. And what I mean by that is when you registered your business, if you're an LLC or a corporation and Secretary of State, you gave a specific name. Maybe you spelled out incorporated. If that is what you did, that is the name of your company. You can't abbreviate moving forward. So you can't spell it out initially and then go to INC period, because that is not the name of your business. So when giving DUNS your information, you want to ensure it matches what you told Secretary of State. You can look up your own business at Secretary of State. There is a corp search that you can look up your own business and it will show the basic information about your corporation. So it will give you the name of the company formally. SAM, you can only do this after you have received the DUNS number. So these are set up in the order you must do them. So you must first get the DUNS, and it may take a day or two, and that's okay. And then you're going to be ready to move into the SAM system for award management. This is the system you are required to register in to be considered a federal government contractor. All businesses, large or small, profit or nonprofit, if they are wanting to do business with the federal government, they must be in SAM. SAM is a secure database of information. There's additional information you will be providing in SAM, and it is a two-part registration where it's going to be an individual registration first, and then the second part will be the business registration. SAM does have an annual update that is required. SAM will send you a reminder 60 days before, and the update should not take more than 15 minutes. The original registration may take 30-ish minutes. Hopefully this webinar will give you an idea of what you need to have ready. So as long as you have the information ready to enter, it will go fairly quickly. The two-part login. So this is what the SAM system looks like. And I do want to emphasize their website or MIL for military at the end. Once you get into some systems, there is basic public information available, and consultants are searching that. And so you may get a consultant email that makes you believe it's the government coming to you, but they're going to ask for money. Government does not ask for money. So that is another place where I tell everybody, just send it to me, forward it over, and I'll tell you if it's legitimate or not. So at the SAM.gov site, you will see to the right the sign in. So initially you will click on that sign in. At the bottom, you'll do an accept, and then it'll move to where you would sign in. But at the bottom of that, it will say create account. You need the person, your email, you're going to set a password, and then it's going to ask, how do you want to do the multi-factor authentication? So you'll have the option of a phone call. And remember, when the phone call comes in, you have to answer it. So it's not always my first choice for clients. The option could be a text code. We're all pretty used to receiving a text code. Or if you use an authenticator, such as Google Authenticator, you could use that as your secondary. So those will be the options identified. There'll also be 10 password option. You don't want that for sure. Remember, I said no to that. Text is probably the most common. It will take moments for your individual registration to validate, and you'll be ready to go. And what that means is once you're ready to go, you're going to go to SAM again. You're going to actually sign in using your information. And now you can move forward with an entity registration. Your business is known as an entity to the federal government. You will do a new entity registration. The first question will be, what is your DUNS number? The information you gave DUNS is automatically going to populate into the SAM system. DUNS is controlling the name of the company and the address. So if any of that changes up until next April, you go to DUNS and then they push it over to SAM. So when you start that entity registration, you'll put in your DUNS number. They will ask you to type in the name of the company and the address, but the next page will show you two boxes. And on the left, it'll be what you entered, and on the right will be what DUNS says. DUNS wins. If the right box is not right, the system's going to say, go back to DUNS and make changes, and then they'll push it through. So what you enter, yeah, you want to get it somewhat close to what the reality is, but it really doesn't matter because it's generating the next step, which is done. You accept it, you move forward. Some information you will need to know and have ready. The SAM system is going to ask you for the business banking information. So routing number, account number, phone number of your local bank is sufficient. And the reason being is federal government does pay their bills electronically. They are the best money you will find in business. They do pay small business promptly. As a part of this process, you're going to create another password within the system, and that is called an MPIN, Marketing Partner Identification Number. It's going to be 9 digits. It can be alpha and numeric. And basically how to look at it is there is a password to initially enter SAM, but then there is a password to go forward in SAM. So it actually is a good security measure, but I encourage you write it down because many don't write it down at that point. And then it's a little bit more complicated to get through the reset. So that's just preparing you for that MPIN, 9 digits, alphanumeric, whatever you want it to be. The system's going to ask you for what are your NAICS codes, North American Industry Classification System. So we give you that link so you can look up what your codes will be. You're going to do a search on the census site for NAICS codes based on keywords again. And the example would be if you're in consulting, if you use the word consulting, the system will generate a list of all the places consulting is identified. And so it helps you really target in and pick those codes you feel would be applicable. When picking codes that are applicable, you're going to see that they're written based on industries. They're a little broadly based. And so you're going to select codes that you believe you have capability within. You may not have all the capability identified, and that's okay. If you see a code, even if you feel it's a gray area, go ahead and align to that code. This initial listing of codes are from your level of expertise. I'm going to take you back to when I talked about the bid match. So when we're looking for federal opportunities for you, I am using keywords ideally. I could put in NAICS codes, but here's what I know. A buyer has it's applicable, and sometimes it can be different than what you have identified. So the bid match is done by keyword. So that way, if a buyer uses a different NAICS code than what you have identified for yourself, it's not a problem. You're still going to see the opportunity. And at the point of seeing that opportunity, if you're going to pursue it, and let's say you pull me in for some insight, I am going to look at your SAM and say, oh, you didn't register for this NAICS code. Log in, do an update, add the new code. So as you go forward, you can add more codes as it becomes identified to an opportunity you want to pursue. Historically, companies will have probably somewhere between 3 and 10 codes. One code is rare. There are some industries that it's just a clear code, and so they do have one, but many aren't that simplistic. They have 3 to 7, somewhere in there. And this is a starting point. You're doing your best to do the research and identify codes. As I said, new codes can be added, codes can be taken out. So it's not one time. You can update as you move forward. Each NAICS code you identify is going to identify if you are a small business in the eyes of the federal government. So while you're identifying capability, that same code has what's called a size standard correlated to it. And so a size standard could look like this. If you're selling products, even as a distributor, it's going to be a manufacturing code. So I know it can be uncomfortable for distributors when I say you're going to align to the manufacturing code. Federal government says this: distributors, you can sell to us, but if we set aside the opportunity for small business and we have to use the manufacturing code, it's a procurement rule. The manufacturer you're representing, if it's a small business set aside, must be a small business as well. So it's called the non-manufacturing rule. So distributors, you will use this manufacturing code, but as you do your NAICS code search, you will see there's wholesale distributor codes as well. You could utilize both if you'd like, in your SAM registration. What this slide is telling you is for each of these codes, there is an average annual number of employees identified. So the first one, dog and cat food manufacturing, says 1,000. That is stating that to be considered a small business, the company must have less than 1,000 employees. For services, it's a 5-year average of sales that will be utilized to consider. So the first one here is architectural services, and that is saying the business must have less than $8 million in sales over the 5-year average. So SAM is going to ask you as part of this registration, what is your average annual number of employees? What is your 5-year average of sales? And then it's automatically going to identify you as small based on your answers against the NAICS code. The logic is built in, so it happens automatically. The system will allow you to self-designate in some areas. It'll automatically give you small business. It will allow you to check off if you're women-owned or economically disadvantaged women-owned, and I will help you understand what that means. It will allow you to check off if you're a small disadvantaged business, if you're a veteran-owned business, service-disabled veteran-owned business. It will also allow you to identify you are in a minority-owned business, but federal government does not contract under what we know universally as a minority business enterprise. And I promise I will explain that. The small business size standard document, we do give you a link to that. And what that table is showing you is all NAICS codes and all size. The size once it determines if you are small or not. When you finish your registration in SAM, it will go through 2 points of validation. The first will be the IRS, and the second will be for a CAGE code, Commercial and Government Entity Code. Department or Defense Logistics Agency is the one that assigns a CAGE code, and that is a 5-digit alphanumeric that is assigned by Department of Defense, and Department of Defense identifies you under your CAGE code. It doesn't always give the name of the company. If there are any issues during each validation, you will receive an email and it will say, here's what our issues are, or here's what we question, and then you make the changes. You may need to hit submit, log back into SAM and hit submit again. Again, we can help you through those processes. Another part of your SAM registration is going to be a subsegment where you are going to create a small business profile. This profile is missed 9 out of 10 times if you don't know to look for it. And what you're looking for in your SAM registration is a page. It's going to be towards the end of the registration. Bottom, it says small business profile, but you have to click on the link provided. So there's a step within this registration you'll need to do. When you click on that link, another window will open, and it's going to allow you to finish additional information as a small business profile. Keywords can be added, a capabilities narrative can be added, the business type, service, manufacturing, and if you hold any non-federal certifications. A state level certification as women business, minority business, veteran owned, physically disabled. Whatever those non-federal certifications are, you can enter them into this profile. The reason you would enter non-federal is because large corporations have subcontracting plans per federal regulation. And so therefore, they're going to look for small businesses. They have the ability to search this database looking for small businesses, and those corporations may be looking for other certifications. So this profile whether it's federal or not, that could help you if other businesses are searching. You do have access to this small business page, and it's called Dynamic Small Business Search, or DSBS. And we give you the link. And we do encourage you to do some competitive research before you do your SAM. And the reason being is, when you have the ability to enter the profile, we just want to help you be ready to know, what am I going to type in? What do I want to put in here? And it could help you to look at others and see what they've done to determine, I like that, I don't like that, that's my competitor, I want to align to them. And so here's an example of what could produce when you run a search. So this search, we did a keyword. There's multiple filters you can use when you go to the site, and we used event planning. Event planning created a listing of 296 profiles, and it's going to be a randomized listing. Every time a search is done, everybody gets the same opportunity to be in the first spot and to be on the first page. So it's randomized every time. The information on the first 3 columns, name, contact, and address, is populated from your SAM registration. So it's automatically filled in based on that DUNS information and what you already typed into SAM. The capabilities narrative, you are going to have the ability to enter. We encourage you to be succinct and concise. Do not overwrite it. Do not write a paragraph, because the reality is, if a large corporation or federal government is searching here, they're trying to make some decisions, and so they're not going to spend a lot of time reading it. We do encourage you, go ahead and use a string of keywords again to identify, this is what I do. Don't worry about putting the name of the company to start the sentence. You can see that's right there on the first column. Don't worry about writing this great sentence or paragraph. They're not taking the time to read it. You want to just ensure you're giving very clear, concise information as to what they can buy from you. You can see that the first red arrow is showing this company is certified. So when you go to do a search in the system, you can say, I just want companies that do event planning. And so what you will get is a list of all companies, whether they're women-owned, whether they're 8A, whether they're veteran-owned. It's all companies that are small. Federal government, as I move on in this presentation, you will see they have set aside goals in specific categories, 8A being one of them. So to enter that in your capabilities narrative, if I'm a buyer and I did event planning and I said, oh, I'm short on my 8A goal, I'm seeing it right there up front, and it gives me reason to look at yours first. If you move down to that second arrow, it's supposed to be aligned to the blank space. And what we're showing you is, if in SAM, you do not click on the opportunity, that link, it's going to give you a blank capabilities narrative, because you will really have an incomplete profile. So we want to make sure yours is complete. So the things you need ready are keywords. And the reason being is, when you go to this system and it says, what do you want to search for? Keywords is one of those things. Now, you gave me keywords if you're using BidMatch to find opportunities. And so my system is doing a crawl every day looking for those words. But this system is saying, if a buyer comes here, or a large corporation, and they need to find what your business does, and they don't know any companies or the NAICS codes or anything, they can type in the words of what they're trying to buy. That's where the keyword is. So it could be one and the same with the bid match, or it could be different. The capabilities narrative, I identified that. And then the business type and non-federal will be a part of the profile information. Before I move on, I just want to tell you a little minutia about the system. So in the SAM system, you'll be entering the information. You'll get to the page where there's no fill-ins. If you look at the bottom of the page, you will see small business profile reference. You will click on that link. A window will open. You will finish the profile. When you are done with the profile, you actually will go back to that SAM window. So you can close the new window, go back to the SAM window. It's going to show you the page where you clicked. You will do save and continue 2 more pages, and then you need to hit submit in order for your SAM registration to start the validation process. So just remember, if you don't hit submit, you are incomplete, you're a work in progress, it's not done. SAM right now is taking anywhere from 7 to 21 days to process. Some days they're really busy and some days they're not. So you just have to have some patience. If there's any issue, you will get an email. So you want to be watchful for emails. If there's no issue, your SAM goes active without notification. So what I advise clients is you can start checking maybe a week later. You can start searching to see if you've gone active. Federal government, what does their purchasing threshold look like? So I'm giving you a little bit of detail on that so you can understand. So there's something called a micro purchase, and that would be $10,000 or less in value. And what that means is that buyer can do whatever they want. Those are not required to be advertised. They will only use credit card to make those purchases. I am not saying go out and get yourself set up right now, but I am saying be aware, maybe look at your business bank and determine, are there merchant services? Just be prepared. If you're faced with an opportunity and they're saying, I need to pay you by credit card, you can delay them a little bit, go to the business bank, get those merchant services started. You won't lose an opportunity. So the micro purchasing, because they don't have to advertise those, that is where that dynamic small business search we just saw could be used. So that's the importance of that one. The micro purchase, they could be doing worldwide web search. They have multiple opportunities to look for businesses to supply and meet their needs. They could go down the street to Home Depot if that is what is needed. Simplified acquisition, this is exceeding $10,000. So you can think of it as $10,000.01, but less than $250,000. So simplified acquisition is intended to be a little easier on you to respond. I would argue that sometimes those are not really easy, but with some explanation, we can get you through it. Within this threshold at 25,000 is where they are required to advertise it. And that's where my bid match can find it. Below 25,000, contracting staff can still advertise, but they're not required to. So there's a gray area of opportunity between 10 and 25,000, because less than 10,000, they can do what they want. But in reality, 10 to 25,000, they can do what they want as well. So if you're a company that is selling something that could fall into the less than 25,000, very simply, as you get further into this, we do have some insight on how to be more proactive in gaining exposure to government contracting personnel so they know you exist. No perfect way. It's really using past contract information to get points of contact so you can electronically through email reach out, and we help you create a template email so you don't spend a lot of time, because we don't know if those efforts will really produce an opportunity. Credit card is possible. Some contracting staff do have $250,000 as an authority. Anything above 10,000, you are not required to accept in micro purchase. Normally, simplified acquisition is reserved for small business. That means federal government has done their due diligence. They have identified that at least 2 small businesses exist somewhere with the capability needed. Therefore, they have to set it aside. And so this is the dollar threshold, 10,000 to 250,000, that small business set-asides are primarily going to happen. Simplified acquisition is normally fixed price, quantity, delivery identified. very to the point of what is needed. There is a contract method called GSA schedules. For a long time, it was out there, a lot of buzz about it, a lot of consultants out there saying you can't do it yourself and they will do it for you for $5,000. With our assistance, you can do it yourself. It's one method of contracting for federal government. It's the easiest way for them to go make a purchase when it's a commercial item. I need to buy office supplies. Buying from the GSA schedules contract gives them the ability to do that efficiently and quickly. You as a contractor can submit a proposal to be recognized and be awarded a GSA schedule contract, but it's not a true opportunity right away. What it is a pre-approval. Think of it as getting on a master agreement. You're proving to the federal government through multiple pieces as part of your proposal that you are treating them as a most favored customer. And that means you're giving them your best price, period. It has to be the best price from anybody you sell to. And again, we have a checklist. We can take you through that and talk you through that. I have a question, so let me look at that quickly. You may have touched by joined on other state files. So the question is about certifications. The good news is I haven't touched upon it yet, but I am going to touch upon it. So just give me a little bit more patience and we will get that answered for you. So the Goaling program, I had touched upon the set-asides. So this is what set-asides look like. So 23% of federal contracts are set aside for small business. 5% are set aside for the Small Disadvantaged Business Program, which is known as the 8A program. 5% is the Women-Owned Small Business Program. 5% for HubZone Certified Owned Small Business Program. And then 3% for Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business. When you are doing that small business profile and the dynamic small business search, you are going to be able to, as part of your SAM, it will show up in your profile, but there potentially are steps that you need to formalize some of this, and that is the certification aspect. Small business, there is no formal certification. It's just your SAM registration. 8A, there's a formal certification we will talk about. Women-owned, economically disadvantaged women-owned, there is a formal certification now. We will talk about it. HubZone certified, formal certification, still going to talk about it. And then service disabled veteran-owned small business. Currently, once you registered as service disabled in the SAM system, to sell to all agencies except the U.S. Department of Veterans Administration, that's all you need. SAM registration, saying you're service disabled veteran-owned, that's it. You can pursue set-asides. If it is a VA opportunity, there is a formal process that must be done in order for you to be eligible. This information is changing. We have lots of changes in the last couple of years. It has not changed yet, but it is coming. The U.S. Small Business Administration will be taking control. The VA no longer will be certifying. And so at that point, once it formally changes, the service disabled veteran-owned will become a formal process as well. Subcontracting opportunities. So federal government, when they award to a large business, that is where they flow down that subcontracting plan. And so that is where you as a small business may have opportunity to be considered a subcontractor to a large corporation. Those large corporations have their own processes, procedures, and rules. And so you want to do research with, you can go to any search engine, go to Google, type in the name of the corporation, put supplier diversity right after it, and it will take you to the page they have that identifies, we have a vendor registration, here's the certifications we recognize. You have to align to the rules of that corporation. So while there is a federal rule, they must subcontract to small, the federal government cannot tell them how or to who. So there is possibility but it's not as clean of an opportunity as it is to sell to the federal government. So the subcontracting goals are very much equal to what the federal government holds to themselves. There is one difference. That difference is the federal government holds themselves to the 8A goal specifically. When they go to the large prime, they don't hold them to contracting with the 8A companies, but they do say the business must be considered a small disadvantaged business. And that is going to be a checkoff box in the SAM that you will engage to identify yourself as a small disadvantaged business. When trying to get to large corporations, again, it's about building relationships so we can help identify some contacts. Do your homework. You need to really do the research on the prime contractor, the large corporation's website. Understand what are they stating to the marketplace that they want you to know about supplier diversity. Is there a registration, whatever the case may be. State of Illinois, to be considered a contractor, very similar to federal government as far as an electronic process. Couple little changes. So if you're a business with more than 15 employees, you must have an IDHR number, Illinois Department of Human Rights. That will cost $75. If you have less than 15, you're not required to have it. But again, that will be changing probably next year. And that change will be all businesses will be required to have an IDHR number. Board of Election ethics requirement. That is a business must go to the Board of Elections, register their business. You're identifying if the business and or the owner gave campaign contributions to any state representative. If you did, you are not able to contract with state of Illinois for 1 year. State of Illinois does not use the NAICS codes as we looked at, but they use a very similar system called the NIGP, National Institute of Government Purchasing. And so within their system, they will give you connection to that NIGP system. You can do the quick research to find your codes for state contracting. You will see it's also a 6-digit number. The difference is they give you one line title of what it is, no additional description. So you may be picking those where there's a little uncertainty. It's always better to pick more than less. So if you feel when looking at the NIGP system that, well, maybe this could apply, go ahead and align to that number. You are doing the registration in what's called the Illinois Procurement Gateway. The link is where the blue star is at the bottom. The state of Illinois does have their own opportunity system. Federal government has SAM. State of Illinois has what's called bid buy. My bid match system that I do for you is searching all of these, but nobody knows you're getting it from me. So it's a way for you to look and not identify yourself. If you want to be known to these entities, then the SAM, of course, you're going to do your registration, but the bid buy is a separate registration you would do. You can do the bid buy registration to see what their opportunities look like, what their awards look like, get a sense of their purchasing history without registering with their vendor system. So these two systems do not speak to each other. I have clients who don't want to sell to state of Illinois because they could be slow pay. I have to say they can still be slow pay. They're far better than they were years ago, but it could be 90+ days before you get a payment from them. If you register for the bid buy, you can watch opportunities without identifying yourself to the state of Illinois. If you register in the vendor registration, that is where you gain exposure. That is also where you will identify yourself as a small business to state of Illinois. They also have a program similar to federal government. The only difference is it's smaller and they want formal proof. And the formal proof will be the first page of the federal business tax return, the first page of the state business tax return. There is also specialized purchasing in state of Illinois, that would be the IDOT. They have internal authority outside of the state general system. And that's because US Department of Transportation is their primary funder. So there is regulatory for that. Capital Development Board, they are the construction arm of the state. Again, it is outside of the general system. So they do have pre-qualification they can do with construction firms. So that would be another site you may want to consider. And then the tollway is self-funded. So because they are revenue generating, they really are not always following the state rules. And so it's worth it to go look at the tollway to understand what certifications do they recognize. A lot of what you see federal and state, they accept all of it because they can. Okay, so we are at the point of, I gave you the basics of contracting for federal government and state government. Gave you an idea of set-asides. There will be a chart as we move forward into the certifications that's going to help you kind of understand how does this all play out. Small business, women-owned, it should really help give you clarity. If there are any questions on federal or state contracting, now would be a good time to ask those. Otherwise, I will go into certifications. What I have shown you to this point allows you to register immediately and be considered for opportunities as a small business right away. Moving forward, you can add certifications, which would be an additional opportunity path for your business. So that is where certifications can come into play. They are not the only way to do business. Okay, doesn't look like we have any questions. So I am going to move forward with certifications. So certifications are in place to have a focus on economic development. So it's specific preference groups, which is the focus of certification. Governmental agencies, they have rules in place, and they're trying to help diverse business populations. There is a formal process required. That means an application, whatever it is they've identified, and additional documentation. Certification is all about proving you, the owner, manage, own, and control your business. Different certifications are required for different levels of government, and that is what I'm going to review. And the most basic eligibility factor for certification, the business must be majority owned, 51% or more, by the socio group claiming status, women, minority. Basic factor, and that is the owned factor. First, let's look at what are the certification possibilities, because we have lots of clients that come to us and say, I am certified, and they hold one certification. And we have to help them understand that that one certification is helping in one place. You may end up needing 4 different certifications based on what you want to do for your business. How broad do you want your customer base? So that is what I'm going to go through. So at the local level, the first 2, City of Chicago and Cook County, you can be certified as minority business enterprise or a women business enterprise. I'm going to skip the DBE and jump to the business enterprise, physically disabled, veteran business enterprise. You can get either or, so you can go to recognize each other. So they are the only 2 that truly recognize each other. City of Chicago, Cook County will charge $250, but it is for 5 years. The Women's Business Development Center, they are a private certifier. So this is the one for women business enterprise for selling to many of the large corporations. If you look at their supplier diversity, Women's Business Development Center, which is the name of the location. They're all over the country. The end result is you receive Women Business Enterprise National Council, or WeBank certification. So you go to the local office, Chicago, you get the certification. It is nationally recognized. So any corporation anywhere in the country will recognize it, and you will identify you have WeBank certification. This one is $350, and that is the initial fee, and then there is a fee annually you do have to pay. The Chicago Minority Supplier Development Council will certify you as a minority business enterprise. It is the same as that WBDC above. It is a private certifier. It is what the corporations are going to be looking for. The end result is National Minority Supplier Development Council. So you get locally certified, but you can use it nationally, and that is what you are advertising, that you have National Minority Supplier Development Council certification. This one is the most expensive. It is $500 initially, and then it's about half that on an annual basis for renewal. If you are women and minority owned, I do not ever encourage you to get both of these. I think one or the other is sufficient because of the will help you. You don't need both of them. State of Illinois, they will certify you. And as I go through, so City of Chicago, Cook County, if you want to sell to them, that's the reason to get City of Chicago or Cook County. So that is that customer base. Women's Business Development Center, Chicago Minority Supplier Development Council. If you want to sell to corporations, do a little research, but you will probably find these are the ones that are being asked for. So in order to get your best opportunity, you should hold the tool they are looking for. State of Illinois, they have their own certification, and it's done through Central Management Services. That's the agency. It is in the business enterprise women business enterprise, physically disabled business enterprise, veteran business enterprise, service disabled veteran business enterprise. State of Illinois is free of charge. My favorite, because it is free. If you are saying, I want to have a certification because I want to give credibility to my self-designation, right? I'm saying I'm minority owned, but it's just me saying it. This would be the one I would say get first because it's free. They are also the fastest turnaround. So they will certify in less than 60 days. City of Chicago and Cook County, I have a client that just received it and they applied 14 months ago. So you can expect 9+ months from either of them. Women's Business Development Center, Chicago Minority Supplier Development Council, at least 90 days for theirs. So CMS, it's primarily used to sell to state of Illinois. They have set-asides, 20% set-asides when you're in that BEP program. And what that is saying is they don't pick one over the other. Minority over women, that doesn't happen. They say to their buyers, pick one of them. But as far as getting your first certification, they're probably the most direct to apply for. You get the quickest turnaround, and you can then identify on your website, you are certified by Illinois. I don't ever say identify Central Management Services, just say Illinois MBE or Illinois WBE. Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. So this one has a little twist to it. So US Department of Transportation created it, and then wherever their funding goes, that's where it applies. So as a business registered in Illinois, you must be certified of the agencies. So in our case, the US DOT funding goes to IDOT, METRA, PACE, CTA, and City of Chicago Transportation. So you would pick one of those, submit application, receive the DBE designation, and then all of them will recognize it. We do recommend Metra, PACE, or CTA because they are part of a pilot program, and that means they will give you an additional designation on top of DBE, that is SBE, Small Business Enterprise. There's no specific goal for that, but they are releasing opportunities. What is the definition of a disadvantaged business enterprise? It's broken up into two parts. You must be socially and economically disadvantaged. Social is the 5 minority groups, and women are a 6th group. So as you can see, what they did, they blended together women and minority into one classification. The economic disadvantage means the owner claiming status must have an individual net worth, so it's not about a business, it's about the person, of less than 1.32 million. That is excluding primary residence ownership, excluding any pension or 401k that for early withdrawal, and it's excluding any business interests. It's a simplified assets and liabilities form you would fill in. There's no real proof you need to supply. You're giving an estimate as of the date you complete it, and it's your liabilities subtracted out of your assets to come up with your individual net worth. This disadvantaged business enterprise can travel. And what that means is you would get certified for your business in your home state, but possibly Indiana DOT releases an opportunity. You could be eligible to pursue that. You would go to Indiana. You would say, I'd like to be certified as DBE. They have one of two choices. They can accept the DBE you have from Illinois as is, or they can say, we recognize it, which they have to, but we still want some additional documentation. So either way, you can get other states DBE, and then DBE, you can start to say for your company DBE, and then you list all the states you have pursued certification in. Federal government. The A2A, and CMS and DBE, I know I said CMS is free, but DBE is free as well because there is federal and state connection. Federal government, all certifications are free of charge. The majority are done through the US Small Business Administration, and by next year, all of them will be done by the SBA. The 8A Business Development Program is based on your socially and economically disadvantaged. So I've just given you an idea for DBE what that means. Now for 8A, it means social is only the 5 minority groups. Women are not included. And the economic is your individual net worth must be less than 750,000. Same rules as the DBE, just a lower threshold. The 8A program is what I call a one and done. You can get it one time. It will last for 9 years, and that's it. There is no renewal. All the ones I've talked about to this point have renewal factors to them. So you can keep renewing as long as you are eligible. The 8A is a one time. And the reason being is the 8A Business Development Program is intended so you can get direct awarding from federal government. And that means sole source awarding. You find a contracting officer who's willing to give you an 8A direct award, and that means no competition, up to $4 or $6 million in value per year. So the 8A program is the one everybody possibly has heard about, but it really is a hard one to pursue. You can get the 8A, but then to turn it into dollars really takes a lot of time and effort. So I do not encourage a brand new business get the 8A because 9 years and you're done. That clock goes very quickly. I do recommend a business somewhere about year 4 or 5. If they want to pursue federal contracting and want to add to their certifications they hold. At that time, the owner, the CEO, the president will have more time to devote to the 8A development program to pursue the contracting staff to try and get those sole source awards. Hub Zone stands for Historically Underutilized Business Zone. This is the one program that is not associated so much to the owner. It's very much about the business location. Many years ago, I could easily say high unemployment areas, but then we came to a point where we equalize somewhat. What happened during that phase when we had such high unemployment, the program basically lost 40% of its hub zone locations. And that's because a hub zone is identified based on census tract, and it's a percentage below the median. And so when that changes, that's where hub zone locations are lost. What you would do to identify hub zone location, there's SBA has a map. You click on the map, you type in your address, and it will tell you if your business is in a hub zone location. The additional criteria is 35% of your workforce must also live in a hub zone. The easiest analogy I can give you is this. If your business is home-based and you type in your home address, and you are a sole owner, so you have no employees, it's just you, you know you will qualify because that's 100% workforce then. Even though you don't pay yourself, you are still considered part of your workforce. So a home-based business in a hub zone, a solely owned corporation will qualify in that case because there's one person and they live in that home. If you have more than one employee, you have to run all employee addresses to see if where they live is in a hub zone. Hub zones can change as the census changes, and so that would mean realignment. So it is possible you can come out of the hub zone program for that reason. The Women-Owned Small Business Program, it formalized a year ago. So that means you do have to make application to the SBA, and you will give them the documentation to prove you are women-owned. The SBA changed rules a little bit from everything we know to this point. So what they said was, first, your NAICS code must be in the program. So there's a listing of NAICS codes shown for the women-owned program or the economically disadvantaged women-owned. And so you look at the list because you've already figured out what NAICS codes you're aligning to. When you find your NAICS code, it will tell you, is it women-owned or is it economically disadvantaged women-owned? It's not our decision. The program has identified it. Economically disadvantaged means your individual net worth must be less than $750,000. So it's like the 8A program. You just are supplying that information. It's the same every time they do a net worth. It's you're supplying an estimate of what is it for your assets and your liabilities to come up with your net worth. The Women-Owned Small Business Program, women-owned or economically disadvantaged, there is an annual renewal to that as well. Hub Zone, they will look at it annually, but every 3 years it's formally considered. The veteran-owned, service-disabled, veteran-owned small business. The only agency currently that you have to do a formal process is if you want to sell to the VA. And if that is the case, the VA will do the validation or certification. They have the records. For service disabled, it's a 0% that qualifies. And what that means is you are not receiving any disability payments, but the VA does recognize something has been notated in your file that there was a service-connected issue, but you're just not receiving payments. So that is what 0% means. The small disadvantaged business, that is the one you will check off in SAM. And when you check that box, here is what you're attesting: that you are socially and economically disadvantaged. Social is defined as the 5 minority groups. Economic is your individual net worth is less than $750,000. There is no formal process. There's no check or balance. If you check that box, you have attested federally that you qualify. This is a little guidance on that women-owned because they made such a difference as far as first you have to look at the NAICS codes and where you need to get certified. So we did add a slide to give you that specific information. If you were certified by that Women's Business Development Center or WeBank, the SBA does recognize that certification. And so if you have done that one, and they have also given you the WOSB designation, it will make your life a little easier when you go into the beta.certify website. You will only need to upload that letter. There's many documents you won't need to include because that letter is attesting to it's already been reviewed and processed. There are other third-party certifiers, but we really do recommend you consider that WeBank or WBDC because they're the most recognized by the large corporation community. The service disabled veteran owned, this is the information as I stated. So for military agencies, your SAM checking that box is sufficient. They will accept that. For the VA, you need to have gone through a formal process with them in order to be able to pursue their set-asides. And then this is about the SDB again. It looks like we're repeating ourselves. So what does it mean to submit documentation? So an application is a fill in the blank. And so at the end of the application, it's going to ask for additional documentation because you are proving you manage, own, and control your business. So I'm going to go through this checklist, and we use the state of Illinois as the example. Other entities have their own checklist, and they ask for more documentation. So this is an example. It can get you pretty well ready for any certification. You just might have to add more. And I will identify what are the minimums needed because not everything applies to every business. State of Illinois, if you are going to get veteran business enterprise, you do have to supply a copy of your DD-214. If you were to do the USVA, you wouldn't have to supply that. Same as if you're service disabled, you have to supply the disability letter. Every business must have a real estate agreement, lease, ownership. If you are a home-based business, you will include a copy of your mortgage statement. If you are an apartment-based, a rental agreement, whatever the case is, something is needed to fulfill that requirement. If your business requires licensing, a lawyer, an accountant to be a certified public accountant, you need to supply a copy of that license to show I hold what is needed to be successful. There will be a question saying, please attest to if you've ever received other certifications or denied. It's really writing the statement, signing it. If you're claiming you're a woman or you're in a minority class, you must prove that. And so it's either a birth certificate or a passport. A driver's license is not sufficient. If you are here based on a visa, you will need to supply that as well. Resumes, so you need to supply a resume for the owner, the person claiming status. It's really not a typical resume, but you can use a resume maybe you had previously when you were identifying job opportunities. What you need to do is take that resume, add to it the ownership of this business. Make sure you show the title of power because that's important in control. And then to run this business you own, there's 4 functional responsibilities. You make all the financial decisions. You make all the contractual decisions. You make all the personnel hiring and firing decisions. and you make all the business development and strategy decisions. That's all you have to show for responsibility for running this business. Whether it's just you or not, it's a business. If it's a corporation, you're selling the corporation, not just you. So this certification process just wants to know the owner is controlling the business. You want to have the rest of your work history on there so you can show them a full picture. I normally say don't go beyond 20 years, that's plenty. You do want to add education, even if it's just high school degree. And if you belong to any trade associations, put that on there as well. The resumes will be needed if you have other employees and you consider them supervisory. You will need their resumes as well. The titles, automotive equipment, I tell my clients do not include anything unless the business owns the equipment. Inventory of equipment, all businesses will have some kind of inventory of equipment. So if you're a product business, of course, they want to see you have some kind of inventory. It could be just I'm home based and I have some inventory in my garage. That could be sufficient. You want to show you own a computer. If you're a consultant, that may be all you need is I need a computer to be successful. And that is all that is on your inventory of equipment. It's going to be a document you create. You're going to show the make and model. You're going to give a value to the equipment. If you were to try and sell it today, what would you try and sell it for? That's the value. And you're going to identify if you own or lease that equipment. Proof of contribution, that's about when you started the business. So if you started the business less than 7 years ago, they do want the proof. And that means I started my business with Secretary of State. I had to pay them $150 to create my LLC. So you will need to provide a copy of where that money came from. And what they're really looking for is the money came out of your personal account. If I'm claiming I'm women-owned, that account better have my name on it as women-owned. It was my personal checking, savings, credit card, whatever the case is. They do need a copy of it showing it. If you have a receipt from Secretary of State, you want to include that. A bank statement could show this is where the money came out of my personal account. You can supply that as your proof. If your business is older than 7 years, record keeping rules say you don't have to maintain those records any longer. So what you would need to do is write a narrative identifying how much money to start your business, where that money came from, a checking account in my name, and what did you use the contribution for to set up my LLC with Secretary of State. It is very possible to start a business. You only needed to set up with Secretary of State, $150, because as a service business, it's me. So I didn't need any more money than that. So what's included on proof of contribution really depends on the business and what makes sense for your business. Bank signature card. So this would be your bank business account. You need to supply a copy of the signature card or the bank resolution. You would need to go to the bank and get a copy of that. Some banks say, no, that's our personal property. If your bank says that, just say, that's fine. I need a letter then identifying the business bank account and who is signatory on it from you. They will give you that letter. Most recent financial statements. So you will need balance sheet and profit and loss. Right now, it would be end of year 2020, and probably they will want up to June of 2021. So you'll give them two. You'll give them a full year and then a snapshot of half a year. You could even go beyond that if you want to give them more information. That's fine. If you're a brand new business and you say, well, I don't have any sales yet, you could still get certified. Your balance sheet and profit and loss will be ugly. They'll be all expenses, but you still need to create a balance sheet and profit and loss. A most recent federal business tax return. If you're a brand new business, you will write a statement that you aren't required to file yet. I started my business in 2021. I don't have one yet. and I'm not required to have one for 2020. So you just make a statement as to why you don't have it. You need to make sure it includes all attachments and schedules. It has to be complete and thorough. State of Illinois wants your individual tax return. Again, complete and thorough. All attachments, all schedules. It can't be redacted. It must be submitted as is. Each of those need to have a signature. And I know in this day and age, we're submitting things electronically, but they're not blindly accepting that anymore. So what you need to do is print off that first page, sign it, scan it back in, and bring it back together with your tax return for their purposes. If you go to certify with any other agency or group, it's at the federal tax return for individual and business. You're going to have to give more. Some ask for 3 years, some ask for 5 years. So I'll just kind of help you prepare for that. Copies of W-2s or 1099s. This one has nothing to do with your business. It has everything to do with the owner. They're looking to see if the owner is working somewhere else outside of their business. So it really is connected to whatever you submitted on your personal tax return. So, and it goes beyond the most recent. They want 3 years. So if you were submitting still this year, you would submit 2020, 2019, and 2018. Next year, those dates will change. If you do not have any, then you write a statement saying your name, you do not have any W-2s or 1099s for the years of 2020, 2019, 2018. You date it, sign it, and if you really want to make it formal, you get your signature notarized. They will know based on that personal tax return if there is an associated wages to you. They will figure it out. They always do. And so if you don't include it, it will get pushed back for questioning. And they only want the W-2s or 1099s for you, not your spouse, if you do have a partner. If you have another job currently, state of Illinois is going to question, how can you give full-time devotion? And actually all the certifiers do question this. So it's frowned upon to have another job and be successful with this business. They want to know the business will be viable and they believe full-time devotion is needed. There are some exceptions. So an exception could be, I do have an 8 to 5 job and I tell them, this is my job. These are the days I work. This is the hours I work. But I also have a product business and it's an e-commerce business and I can do that nights and weekends. So that situation can be the exception because you can show full-time devotion because the work needed is outside of your normal business hours. If your business that must work in the 8 to 5 time frame, and you also have a job in the 8 to 5 time frame, that is where you may not get certified. State of Illinois wants copies of 3 contracts, purchase orders, or invoices, whatever you have. If you have none, you send none. A brand new business can get certified. I will tell you, they will ask for the bank statement to show the invoice was for $300. We want a copy of the bank statement showing the $300 was deposited into the business account. So that comes secondary. So I am forewarning everybody, you might as well grab it now and submit it right away with the invoice. And then finally, it's about your business format. So if you set up as a corporation, there are specific documents your corporation should have. Articles of incorporation, that would be you filled in the blanks for Secretary of State, they sent it back, and it says filed on it. That is what they want. If you have made any changes and there was an amendment, they want those as well. Bylaws for your corporation. So this is a governance document as to the corporation and how it will function. If you do not have bylaws because you are solo owned, we have a template. We can help you get that set up. They will not certify you without bylaws. If you identified, I have one solo owner in your articles of incorporation, and I said there's 100 shares of stock, then you should have one stock certificate showing 100 shares of stock. Again, if you don't have that, we do have a template that you can use and it works for your stock certificate. Stock ledger, we have that template as well, and that is where it's transactional about the stock. So as long as it's just you holding stock, there's one entry and that's all that's on your ledger. You should have minutes of your first stockholders or shareholders meeting and minutes of your first board of directors meeting. So that would be back to the date you started the business. Again, we do have a template so you can create that first meeting. And then every year you are to hold an annual meeting. And so they want the most recent. Very possible first and most recent are one and the same if you newly started. If not, you would need to update those minutes to show you had a meeting right around the incorporation date like you were supposed to. And again, we have a template for all this. If you say, but I don't have any of this, that's okay. We can help you accomplish and get it done. If you're an LLC, you should now have articles of organization. Same thing. Fill in the blank form that came back from Secretary of State and it says filed on it. If you made any changes, you need to have those as well. And then the difference for LLC is you have an operating agreement. Same idea as a bylaw, not as involved as far as pages. And we do have a template if you don't have one. These pages are just showing you how all that documentation plays into manage, own, and control. So, you know, I hear a lot, well, I'm minority owned. Okay, that's part of the picture. You have to prove you manage and control your business as well. So these slides are just showing you where those terms are coming into play. Just to give you an idea on how they look at all the documentation, because you're proving you manage, own, and control, and they are attesting to that. And then the chart I talked about a while ago. So here it is. So in the upper, going to the right, are those different designations: small, women-owned, minority-owned. On the left side going down are the different levels of government. So here's what it's saying. For Cook County, they have a 5% set aside for women business enterprise, a 25% set aside for minority business enterprise, but there is no goal for veteran or service disabled veteran. So they'll make attempts, but they're not held to a percentage goal. City of Chicago, same thing. The only difference is now we pull in the PEBD, which is business enterprise physically disabled. That has no goal. City of Chicago transportation specifically, you can get the DBE, it is free. So you don't have to pay the $250 if the MBE or WBE don't apply to you. And then DBE, because the US Department of Transportation regulates it, it is a set aside of 22.77% of all transportation agencies, and that would be applicable anywhere in the country. IDOT does have small business set-asides that it does use, but they don't specifically align to this SBE. That's a pilot program that is small business enterprise. So you can see the set-asides for IDOT, PACE, Metro PACE, IDOT, Metro PACE, CTA, City of Chicago Transportation. So you submit one application to one of them, but then they all recognize it. So you can sell to any of them. Tollway, they just pretty much accept everything. Federal government, here's that breakdown again. So small business, women-owned small business, or economically disadvantaged women-owned small business. The program dictates which one applies. Service disabled, veteran-owned small business, with the agencies that recognize the SAM is the goal. So service disabled, veteran-owned small business is the formal goal federally. The VA said, we're going to do the right thing. We're going to certify companies and we're going to recognize veteran-owned. So veteran-owned will only be a part of VA purchasing. The 8A, and then HubZone. And then as you can see, moving down below the federal government, the subcontracting, that's where those large corporations that hold a federal contract, those goals flow down to them. And so that is where now that WBDC can come into play, or the CMSDC can come into play. That is the end of our webinar. I am giving you right here my email address. We are still working somewhat remotely, so I don't recommend giving a call. I may or may not be in this office. This webinar is being recorded, so I know they are going to share this information as well. And this is the point of, I will open up to any additional questions you may have. It is easy to get connected to us as a client. Just reach out to me and I'll help you with that process. If you have no questions, you are free to go. The webinar is over. A survey evaluation will be coming out either later today or tomorrow. I would really appreciate if you take a few moments to complete that. We do need that for our grant funders. I thank you all for attending today, and I'll stay on for a few moments if anybody has any more questions to ask. Okay, I do not see any other questions coming through. So I'm going to say the webinar is over, and I thank you all for attending today.